Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 787.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. I'm a big fan of variant colors. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, Ed? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what they're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission, to discuss DC Comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of you know, the Sultan of Strategery, the Minister of More Good, or the Professor of the Art Read-Through, and of course the Elder Statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, Ed?
Jim, on this episode, we are joined by longtime friend of the show, Ken Nabbe, as we begin the first of a two-part look of the life and death of Ferro Lad from Legion of the Superheroes. This is collected in a couple of different places. It's, if you happen to have the Legion of Superheroes Silver Age Omnibus Volume 2, the issues we're talking about are going to be there, but the collection we're focused on this episode is actually from the DC Comics Classics Library reprint, which contains from Adventure Comics issues 346, 347, 352 to 355, and 357. We're covering the first 4 issues of that batch on this episode. We'll cover the next 4 next episode. Mr. Segulin, we're sponsored as always by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
We still have the September issues up, so you still have a chance to get the DC Marvel Batman Deadpool one-shot. All the variant covers are 38% off. The standard main title, 38% off. So you get a great deal on this upcoming really cool crossover. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they have a number of different Legion of Superheroes collections. I just did a search for Legion, and I searched for Omnibus just for the sake of it, just to see what was there. And we mentioned 5 years later multiple times on this podcast. The Legion of Superheroes 5 years later Omnibus is $150 regularly, 40% off, only $90. They also have a couple different versions of the Great Darkness Saga. For example, they've got one, it's Legion of Superheroes Great Darkness Saga. This is $49.99 regularly, 40% off, only $29.99. You'll find a number of other omnibuses and trade collections if you just do a search for Legion of Superheroes in general. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Now I can get out of here.
Joining us this episode is very long-time friend of the show, Ken Nabbe. And Ken, great to have you on the show. And you suggested this in a conversation we were having. You're like, hey, fun to do the life and death of Ferro Lad. Where did this come from? Like, what was the genesis of this one? You said that, like, hey, this is one that I want to do.
Yeah, Ferro Lad has always been one of those that we'll talk as we go through this episode, but very short period of time in actual publication history, but it's also had a very long tail when you talk about the legend of Ferro Lad, how he's reappeared, how he's referenced over and over again. But also, I mean, the elephant in the room, Jim Shooter wrote these issues that we're going to be talking about, and Jim Shooter was always a comic book creator that I admired for years. His time at Marvel, and then learning about his time at DC, and his recent passing. I think it's one of the ones that recently have really hurt and really hit hard. Him and Denny O'Neil's passing, yes. And Bill Adams. We're losing George Perez. We're losing men that were part of this operation for years, that were the foundation for the comics that we're reading today. And we really need to go back and go, how did these individuals start, especially Jim Shooter, with the age he was at when he did this, how influential it was, how he wrote without credit, for a number of years. It's like, how can we really pay homage to this individual that did so much for comics, DC, Marvel, Valiant, Defiant, all the different pieces he was at. He was always a towering giant. If you've ever met him, exactly how tall this guy was. I was very shocked how tall he was. I have a picture with him and my daughter, who was, I think, 6 months old at the time. She's wearing a Saturn Girl costume at the time. So, yeah, the Legion of Superheroes, it's one of those teams that is a little bit on the side. If you're big into DC, the Legion is, but if you were to ask a generic person on the street, they'd have no idea who Legion of Superheroes is. Even though they appeared in Smallville, even though they had their their cartoon series on the WB, they're still a very niche superhero group.
So we're going to be looking at today, we're looking at the DC Comics Classics Library collection of this. It contained issues 346, 347, 352 to 355, and 357. I looked on the DC app to see what's available from these, and a number of these issues are available on the DC app. So if you don't have this collection, you are able to follow along with most of the issues we're going to talk about today. But I do highly recommend seeking out this volume. Not just for the issues that are contained in, which are obviously well worth it in themselves to have physically, but also the introduction. And basically, there's a great conclusion to this by Jim Shooter himself.
Oh, yeah.
Which is well worth reading. So if you're questioning whether or not you should seek out this volume, I would say 1000% yes. I was able to find it very easy on eBay. When you sent me a picture, Ken, of what you were looking at, I'm like, let me try to get the same volume and do that. I'm so glad I did. Introduction by Paul Levitz, which if you are a Legion fan at all, such a rich history with the Legion with Paul Levitz, and actually Paul Levitz running the company as well, and straight on through to Jim Shooter talking about his kid and basically writing back to his kid, who's writing him a letter at the same age he was when he wrote this, which to me is way cool.
Yeah, Paul Levitz is, you got to be the greatest Legion writer in history. Yeah. I mean, his run, he's one of the few comic book creators I have not met. And I really it's on my bucket list of individuals that I want to talk to before they're not around any longer. So
I got to see him at a New York Comic-Con, but that was on stage. So there's a big difference between seeing him on stage. I want to meet him, get something signed. You just have that moment. And it's an example of somebody, I'm with you, that just because he's touched so much. So let's talk the creative team really quick. The writer and layouts, of course, is Jim Shooter. Penciler is Kurt Swan, the great Kurt Swan, which that's something that it's funny. I've been focusing so much in my mind that we're going to be talking about Jim Shooter. We're talking about Kurt Swan on this too.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Inker is George Klein. The letterer is Milton Snapin? Yeah, Snapin. So I'm butchering and I knew it.
I thought these were going to be fairly easy for you, Sean.
I know. I got to flub something. And then, of course, the original series covers are by Kurt Swan and George Klein. So great talent here that we're going to be talking about today. So when we talk about the first issue of this one, just even looking at the cover, it's one of those classic ones and this is something that Shooter did with this. He was paring back the team, but at the same time bringing in some new members that he could have some fun with. And I love when creators find that right, healthy balance of, you want to bring the classic people that we're latched onto, we know who they are, but when you bring in those newer characters, and we see it today with some of the best writers, you bring in some people you can really screw with.
Jim talks about this in his afterword here, that he was sick of the point and shoot Legionnaires. They point and something happens. Point in flames, point in lightning, and point in magnetic waves and telepathy. And it's like he wanted characters that did something, that were more action oriented than just point shooters. And so that's how we see Karate Kid, Ferro Lad, and my personal favorite, Nemesis Kid.
Yes.
But this cover of Legion 346, it's not typical of the Silver Age covers we saw in other books like Action or Superman, where the cover made, you did have a cover artist do a cover and have absolutely nothing to do with the story.
Right.
I mean, that was very indicative of the Silver Age. It's like, let's churn out a bunch of covers. Okay, guys, go write some stories and we'll stick these covers on them. And these covers actually, in this entire run, do correlate with the stories, which is good to see.
Now, historically, just for everybody here, what has been your exposure to adventure comics? For me, it was flea markets. As a kid growing up, it was walking out with that big box that the person didn't know what it was. Sometimes covers were torn and stuff like that. But I was a kid in a candy store. I didn't matter the condition of the book. It was a chance to read something that I didn't have. I mean, obviously, we're collectors. I want the mint, but those were cheap ways for me to get loads of comics that I'd never read before. So it was very broken runs. It was an issue here and there, but that was when I got exposure to adventure comics, especially the classic ones from this era that somebody happened to have there. So some of the issues in here I'd actually read in my childhood because of the fact that I still have them. They're not in great condition.
I know, but still, all these issues here are pretty key, adventure comic keys.
Yeah. So I have a couple of I don't have the full run that we're talking about today, but I've got a couple of the issues in here that I just happen to get lucky and catch at a flea market. So this has been a joy because there are issues in this that I've never read before doing this particular preparation for this recording that I feel like now finally I've got the complete picture. Right. But what about you guys? What is Ken, we'll start with you. What has been your exposure to this?
When I started collecting comics in 1985, the first comic I bought was Crisis on Infinite Earths 12. Right? Great spot to start off. I mean,
what's happening though?
I was a fan of DC heroes from watching Super Friends as a child. I mean, I was born in 72. I'm Gen X, right in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I had bought the Mayfair Games DC Superheroes role-playing game. Yes. And it said at the very end, hey, to keep up with characters, read DC Comics at your local newsstand. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And I was also playing Dungeons and Dragons at the time. So I went to a store called Enterprise 1701 in Orlando. I ended up working there many, many years later. And I would pick up comics, and I buy all my comics. And I picked up a run called The America versus the Justice Society, which was a mini series that basically where Earth 2, and I became very fascinated with Earth 2 at the time. And they talked about the death of Batman of Earth 2. And that happens in Adventure Comics. So I was then, and that's one of the things I miss about modern comics is the editor notes.
Yes.
Because it said, death of Batman, asterisk, go at the bottom, found in Adventure Comics. It's like, that would be how I would find the back issues I was looking for, or to get the fill in the whole life before Wikipedia, before synopsis. So it's like, where can I find out what happened to these characters? The editor notes did that.
Yes.
But I think the biggest piece of Adventure Comics, I mean, I'm a big Mon-El fan. So that first appearance of Mon-El. And also when they brought back Adventure Comics for the Black Knight run. Remember they brought back all those deadlines? Mm-hmm. And one of them was Adventure Comics. They did that, and Weird West Adventures, and a lot of the comic books that had been gone for ages. And Adventure Comics was one of those brought back. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I pulled out some of my older issues. I mean, I've sold my collection a number of times over my moves. I now have everything in trade paperback, and I only have a short box full of back issues, and I only buy back issues now that are older than me. So it makes it easier, but much more expensive. So.
Well, and it's a lot of that stuff when we're getting into the stuff that predates when we were born. Yeah. Some of that stuff isn't collected.
I know.
And that's so it's actually if you're like, hey, I want to have something physical of that, it pretty much is your way to do it.
Well, I mean, I've moved 7 times in the last 14 years, and the last move was 14,000 pounds. And I guarantee that at least 8,000 of that was my trade paperbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I own everything in trade. That's it. The wife gives me a hard time every time we look at it. She's tried to alphabetize it a few times. I keep changing it to chronological order. So,
because it's set up for reader friendly. I get what you're doing.
So what you got to do is lay it out in the Dewey Decimal System and have a card catalog that you can just go to. And, you know,
I've been scanning all the UPCs into one of the library programs. It's my current.
You keep saying this. Where's your Dewey Decimal System that you're doing?
I think we're the only 3 people on the internet talking about the Dewey Decimal System right now.
Yeah.
I keep talking about doing it, but I'm too lazy. So I fully admit I admit my laziness, and my comic collection is so horribly unorganized right now. I should be embarrassed, but again, I am lazy, so I'm not. My Legion of Superhero name is Lazy Lad.
Lazy Lad. There you go.
When all the other heroes are running out, I go,
procrastination boy.
Let's go. I'll hang out at the.
Here's the problem, Lazy Lad. You got a target on you. Jim, what's your history with the Legion in general? And did you have any history with Ferro Lad?
Okay, first off, when Sean said, "Hey, we're going to cover Death of Ferro Lad," my first question was, "Who's Ferro Lad?" So that's my history with the young.
Did you say that?
Yeah, I may not have said it out loud to you.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't remember that conversation, but
I did think it. 100% thought it, because I had no idea who he was.
Okay.
Again, I was trying to figure out what is his power. Iron? He turns into iron? I'm like, how does he use that?
Yes.
So did you not read Final Night? Because he appears in because that's with Death of Parallax. Sun again, another Sun Eater reference. So
you had to have read Final Night.
I 100% read it, but I don't recall. Yeah,
that's a different Ferro Lad. That's one from the 20th century, but the Legion is stuck in the past from the 30th century. Sorry.
Okay.
I gotta go. When they turn the millennium, it becomes the 31st century. So yeah,
it's one of the again with me and the Legion. One, I didn't remember him from that, but with me and the Legion, my Legion experience really started with the podcast. Also, as a kid, I knew who they were, and I may have read one issue or two issues, but I never was locked in on them at all. Like, it's funny, earlier you said, they're the niche comic. Yeah. I was true. Like, I completely agree with you. I was reading comics, but I really didn't know who they were. I knew they were like future Justice League, and sometimes Superboy makes appearances. That's all I knew about them, really. And it's funny because at the time, when I was my early reading, I was an X guy. And anything with an X in the title was right. Yeah, I didn't even really read DC until college.
The Shi'ar Royal Guard is the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that now, but yeah.
It's like, oh, we need to make the Legion. Okay. Well, we can do it here.
Yeah. Well, I know that now. And it's again,
which is cool.
And the funny thing is that's even something I didn't learn until well into the podcast. I don't remember where. I want to say I was in New York Comic-Con and I was talking to somebody about it and they threw out that reference. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
And that was all Dave Cockrum, right?
Yeah.
So that was something that I was like, and again, so when were we last in New York Comic-Con? So I know that's pretty much when I heard that first reference made. But so my experience with Legion is solely on the book. And it's funny, you listen to some of this stuff when we first start talking Silver Age. I'm very critical of it. And then later on, I'm more like, well, I respect where it's come from. This is part of our history, but I wasn't a fan, and now I'm like, I like it. I like this era. I like reading books from these stories from this time, but now I can't read this solely. I like modern writing. I like modern styling, but I can sit down, pick up a book, read it, enjoy the story, and not just enjoy it because it's nostalgia. Actually, read it and enjoy it. And I think that's just my personal growth as a reader. And that's something that has fascinated me over the years of us doing this, and that my opinions, just what I enjoy reading, what I enjoy looking at have so changed. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, because I'm talking about stuff more, because I'm having conversations with people about this. And I'm seeing their side of that going, oh, I never thought of that. And so there's some fascinating stuff with me. And especially so whenever we get a chance to go back and read this stuff, I'm always like, yes, let's do this, because again, it opens me up to something new out there. And I think it's funny because when I think about Legion now, I think you look at some of the stuff that I've always wanted in a comic, age progression, death needing something.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing this back then.
Right.
If I'd known that, I probably would have been a huge Legion of Superheroes fan, because all the stuff that I was like, man, I wish comics would do this, they were doing. And I'm like, now I'm like, Jim, you're an idiot. You should have been reading this. But I didn't read it at the time, but I'm able to make up for it and actually enjoy the time now. So it's so when this got thrown out as this, I'm like, yeah, I'm always willing to find another story that I'm going to read and like.
You read Great Darkness too, because we did that on the show.
Great
Darkness Saga was great.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, that may have been the real introduction of me to the Legion, was us covering the Great Darkness.
Yes. I mean, the Great Darkness Saga did bring a lot of people to Legion. It was very highly acclaimed at the time. It was during that high point of the 80s, pre-crisis, and it was very, very popular. And, you start looking at Jack Kirby was still around when Great Darkness Saga was printed, and they had just done the Hunger Dogs graphic novel as well, which is I think Kirby's last work. I'd have to go look that one up. So yeah.
One of the things you touched on, Jim, was Silver Age and Silver Age writing and things like that. I think one of the things I've come to appreciate over the years about Silver Age writing is there is sort of this idea of this Silver Age banner of what that all feels like.
The vernacular. Yeah. The vernacular.
But when you get to it, one of the things I really appreciated about this, especially when you read this through, Shooter wasn't doing a whole lot of that. This is very different writing. I mean, I think this is where I think Legion, when you're talking about Legion being niche and stuff like that, I think what it is, though, and it needs to be noted, there is a diehard fan base to Legion superheroes. Oh, yeah. And where that diehard fan base comes from, and they won't let go of it, and I get it. I'm really starting to get it. I've become over the years a big fan of Legion. I'm not in the same place, and I'm not going to pretend I am, of some people who've read everything and been devotees on that level. But when you said, "Hey, can we do this?" I'm like, "Yes, please." I was excited and eager to do it because that's where I'm at with Legion now. I get it. And it's because of the fact that when you read this, the dialogue in this, I feel for the time, he was doing a lot of cutting edge stuff. This is, again, a 13 and now 14-year-old kid who is kicking into comics and starting to do some things that other people were not doing in these books. And I think it really shows.
You also got to realize this is 3 years before we landed on the moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of times we talk on Fantastic Four and stuff. It's like, this is stuff pre-moon landing. This is, so when they talk cloud space, and there's not a whole lot of reference material. Jim had to go through and research a lot, again, before Wikipedia. I mean, probably spent a lot of time with the Encyclopedia Britannica, as all of us remember those books sitting in the library. But Jim does a great job speaking up to the audience and speaking down to the audience.
Yeah.
When you're talking professional, can you speak to levels above you? Can you speak to levels below you? Jim does both things. He uses some of the vernacular. We're going to see that in here. A lot of that groovy 60s vernacular, but he also talks and tries to use as much scientific technobabble as he can as well. So it's not as bad as Stargate, where you just flip the switch and suddenly people are just spewing stuff, but it's still pretty good.
So this is 66 for him. And that we were introducing Ferro Lad in this first issue. And one of the things that I really liked that he was doing here is he pared back, and I mentioned earlier, he's pared back the Legion a little bit. And where I think that serves a purpose in getting the idea that this Legion is this much larger thing, and we get to see that many times throughout these issues that we're talking about here. But paring them back, what it allowed us to do is, for the long-standing members, we got to see reactions to things that are happening. We got to see character development, character growth. When you have too many people on screen, what ends up happening is you lose that, because you don't really have the opportunity to really delve into who the characters are. And we really got to know some of these new characters. I will say, naming the traitor, and I know I'm jumping to this, naming the traitor Nemesis. Spoilers. I mean, it was right on the cover, and I love that.
What's great about this is Shooter's now introducing characters that prior to these three, or these four, if you add Nemesis Kid.
Yeah.
All the previous Legionnaires were just from their previous planets, and that was the powers that their planets had. Okay. They were Joe Blow from this planet, and they just happened to go to Earth and work with the Legion. These characters are actually characters with unique abilities,
yes,
mutant abilities, or trained abilities. So again, getting away from the point and shoot, but also getting away from this is just a generic person from this planet that now just happened to join the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah, and that part was really good. It actually added some depth to the Legion as well. And that part was something I really, really enjoyed from this. The introduction of this issue, just looking at the artwork of it, I got to tell you, Kurt Swan, I get why he's a legend. When you take, just the character depictions and things like that, his Superboy it makes me a geek, because as a kid, one of the characters that really stuck out for me always was Superboy. I mentioned getting comics at flea markets. That was where I got a lot of my Superboy stuff. And there was something always fascinating to me about the young Superman. I just loved the idea that we got to see him as a kid. It separated. I was a Batman geek. I grew up with the Batman 66 show, like you, Super Friends. I mean, I was born in 71. So, I mean, this is the same era. This is what our media was at the time. And I loved the Filmation Batman cartoons. One of the things you don't get with Batman is we don't get Batboy. I mean, it's not, right. And I like the distinction. So with Superman, it was like, oh, wait, like we can actually see this kid growing up and what his life was like in Smallville. And when Legion enters into the scene, it's like, and he's got these friends who like get him, right. Which was just way cool. And they're in the far-flung future. And that part's awesome.
And they're not it's not a girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no, it's great to have Lori and Lois. Oh, it's like, we start looking back and Lana, but it's these guys have got superpowers. These kids have got superpowers. They're same age. The fact they pulling them into the 30th century, it basically allows Superboy to be with his peers. I'm waiting to hear the Jim art read through synopsis on this. So what kills me is Superboy's cape length, because we're still in that short Kurt Swan cape, not the it hangs just above your thighs. This is it doesn't even cover your butt capes of the Silver Age.
And these really are decorative capes.
Yes, really are. Don't get caught in stuff.
Yes,
Edna would have no problems with these tapes.
But for your comment, the art read through is an absolute joy. And everything you guys are saying, I'm 100% agreeing with you. It's amazing artwork. This is one of those that I throw out classic comic book art. This is classic comic art. And again, the collected version, we've got really beautiful coloring on it. It's just, this is remastered for the trade. So I don't know what the original paper looked like. Part of me would like to get copies of the original just to see what it looks like, because I'm only seeing this trade version of it. I mean, but again, this is absolutely brilliant, beautiful artwork. There's multiple, I love facial expressions. And not just the anger or a shock at all. Oh, wow. Just when the artist takes their time and actually gives us a scene where they should be going, and you draw the questioning on their face, you have it. The surprise, like when Princess Projecta first hits down, you've got multiple people going, and they got the shock on their face. What's going on here? So he took his time with the artwork to give us, it's not just a blob. It's details. It's not the etched muscular stuff that we get later on, or it's it's that brilliant classic comic book art where there's definition to see these are muscular people, but they're not overdone. There's facial expressions to know they have emotion, but it's not like drawing every etched line on their face. So this is, again, to go along with what you're saying. And the short cape, I'll be honest with you, the short cape did not bother me at all, because again, I was like, one, I didn't know what was going on with if this was what was going on with him at the time or what the deal was. But to be honest, I do like the long flowing cape better than the short, personal preferences, but I don't have an issue.
When we first started seeing the long flowing cape and we saw artists really take advantage of that with Superman, oh my gosh, was that stunning. It's funny to sit there and say, well, guys, it's just a cape. Like, it's not. When you have the reference of saying we got this short cape and then they did, they did what with the cape? It sounds stupid. And I'm going to say it for myself. It's not. When you see it, it's stunning.
It's McFarlane Batman capes.
Yes.
Becomes a character. Jim did bring up a great point though. This stuff was originally printed on newsprint, and most of us started collecting stuff when we start switching over to Baxter print, which was printed on white. Mm-hmm. This collected edition is printed on white, so you don't get any of that color. This is the true 4-color that would have been on the original sketch pad. So this is what we're looking at. This is what the color that the artist would have seen versus what the print would have been. And that's one of the advantages of these new collected editions, these white pages. Now, it's the same size. It's not absolute. I don't think we're ever going to see an absolute edition of a Silver Age book, but this kind of stuff, looking at going a traditional 4-color comic printed on white is just something that is a classic.
I have a number of these DC Comics classics. I wish they still did them.
Yeah.
This was a great line, and I don't know how I missed this one originally, but if you haven't gotten one of these collections, it's DC Comics Classics Library, and they did a number of them. And it was a run that was going for a while when they were doing a lot of collected editions. And it may have just been, this was on a month where I was slammed with the product and I made a bad choice. Because really having this now, and I recommend this to anybody listening to this, if you find these, seek them out. They are quality collections, and the unique nature of them is how they're printed now. You're getting to see this work in a way that you could not have seen it back in the day. So that's the special part of this. And there's extras in there. The intro and the conclusion of it, it really feels like they're talking to you and sharing personal stories and getting in the head of the writer with Jim Shooter, where he was looking at, I look at this team as what the future should be. And he was trying deliberately to implement some things in there that I thought was like really cutting edge at the time. He was trying to look towards ideals that maybe we should strive for. And I think as a young kid trying to take those bold moves, he had some resistance, which is kind of you expect when you're dealing with style. But yeah. But I appreciate the fact that this young kid was sitting there saying, I want to tell stories where let's look towards that and what it should look like and stuff. And I feel like that's coming through in the maturity of his work at such a young age, because he was thinking that far ahead. It's good stuff.
So we'll finally get into issue 1.
Yeah. So issue 1 is introducing these classic characters, and we get to see them. And Jim's kind of was just talking about some of the sequences where we got to see Princess Projectra shooting out her powers. I think we can talk casually about some of this. There's so many highlights in this one. I do think seeing some of the powers manifest is a key for me. That sequence with her, one of the things that stands out for me, we talk about art, is the reactions of the Legionnaires. Oh, yeah. I feel these are heroes who are shockingly thrown into this one. I do question whether or not I'd let her on my team. You just did what to us? Yeah, like I get what you do. I don't know that we want that.
No idea.
But I really love the sequence of that because it is very heady. And I mean, the idea of trying to create and show what illusion power looks like, they did a very good job of emphasizing that this is not reality. It's illusion. And look at where she can take you and how wacky it can get.
I do like tryouts. I love that the Legion has these tryouts. That's something I was like, make them earn their spot on the team. I like that.
Yeah, Superboy being a little bit of a super jerk because he was denied his first attempt to be in the Legion of Superheroes. Now, remember, we've got four new characters here: Ferro Lad, Nemesis Kid, Karate Kid. Not Ralph Macchio, but Karate Kid, and Princess Projectra. And I mean, I am more fascinated with Nemesis Kid's ability.
Yeah.
To come up with this superpower at age, he was writing this at 13. He was published when it was 14. So to come up with this guy's got the power to just change his power to counteract whatever he's going against. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Of course, you have no idea what you're going to get. I don't know how you get some strategy going. Well, excuse me, he is a villain. Strategery going here. But I'm like, it's fascinating. It was one of those, is that what his ability is? And then how they put different blocks against him and how he reacts and works against them.
I don't know at that age that I would have had the wherewithal to recognize you want to put limits on that character. Because he did that as well. I thought the limitation was brilliant that he did. I mean, it's a very interesting, intriguing character. It's a great power set. It's a powerful power set, but he did set it up so that way because this character could easily be omnipotent pretty quickly. And I love the fact that Shooter recognized at that age that we're going to give him this really cool power, but I'm not going to overpower him to the point where we can't do anything with him. And I loved that, restraint. I think when you're playing with toys, like, which is what you're doing when you're a talented writer, you got to recognize how to keep a balance in there. And I thought that was a real mature choice with how they handled it, because it's an interesting and intriguing character, and it was a great choice.
Yeah, this is also the era in which Superman can move the Earth. Okay, so I mean, this is beyond Superman flying backwards and set in time. This is I can move the Earth into a new solar system era Superman.
Yeah.
So
All right.
to be able to dial it back and to realize he needs to dial it back, we know this is long before the Byrne reboot.
Yes.
So looking at what kind of powers should superheroes have? And again, the Legion of Superheroes has Mon-El at this point. Supergirl's arrived at least once, and Superboy's a regular. So you already have those three on your team. Do you really need the rest of them?
And Kryptonite is sold in stores.
Yeah.
Kryptonite seems to be everywhere in the future.
Yeah.
Like you can just get it.
Get rid of all.
It's like you get it. I think. I mean, it's really one of those things. When you go to the dentist, they give you a toothbrush and Kryptonite.
Right.
I mean, it's really great. It was great having the introduction of Nemesis Kid first, though, and then getting to take a look at Ferro Lad and getting to see his powers put into play. He looks cool. I really liked the costume. I liked Shooter's reason for what he was doing with him initially with the mask and what I wish his thought process had played out.
Yeah, I think it would have worked better than having another Doctor Doom kind of approach. And let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I mean, Jim Shooter originally wanted Ferro Lad to be of African American descent, and editorial didn't want it because they didn't think it would sell well in the South. The part of the times it's 66. Editorial would have been right.
Yeah.
But again, we get other characters of color in Legion of Superheroes later on, but it wouldn't be until the 70s. But it's one of those, it's disappointment. I think it really will work well. I think even the later stories we'll get into, I think it would have worked well as well. But if Legion didn't sell well, would we have gotten more stories with the Legion later on? It's a product of its time.
Like you said, editorial had to make a decision at that time, and you're going back at what that era was like versus the decision you'd make now.
And the guys running DC at the time. I mean, this would have been during the Gardner-Fox period. So, I mean, we're talking Golden Age writers, and we're talking. There's a lot of that mentality is still was prevalent at that period.
I just thought it was interesting that we've got a young writer who's coming in and saying, like, let's talk about this and let's try to put that out there. Go ahead, Jim.
Interesting thing with me, when I dove into this, I didn't read the introduction or the ending. I just read the issues.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So when I first was reading this, I didn't know any of the backstory, any of that stuff. I didn't know how old he was when he wrote this,
Oh,
so I'm reading this going, oh, wow, this is a really cool story. I was loving it. Then I go back and I reread second read through. That's when I read all this stuff. I was like, holy crud. Hey, he was only a kid. What the fuck? And then going through and reading it again after knowing that, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It went from being, oh, this is a really cool, neat story to being, oh my God, wow, how could this? And then especially the identity of Ferro Lad, that again, I was like, man, you think back to just a lot of times people are throwing out the teams, comic books are becoming too woke, and they're throwing out all that kind of stuff. We've got writers back in the 60s who wanted to do stuff like this, who wanted to say, hey, we're all the same. We're all comic book writers, comic book creators have always been saying this stuff. Anything people are throwing out new about changing different characters and blah, blah, blah. Comic books have always done that. This right here is proof that they've always thought differently. And it's part of the reason some of these great creators are these great people that they are.
One of the things we start looking at Jim and his age and when he was doing this. And remember that Jim was sending in stories. He got hired with them not knowing what his age was. It wasn't until these stories that they realized that when they started to try to write him checks, and when he traveled from Pittsburgh to New York to accept a gig, that they found out exactly how old he was. One of these things kills me, though. We introduce all the new characters. Everybody gets about 1 page, except Karate Kid. He gets a 5-page intro on how he can take Superboy down as we start looking at that. Yes, Superman can't have his weight used against him. All the crazy karate, judo mantras that we heard in the 60s. I was very shocked that it was Karate Kid, not Judo Kid. So
yeah. I like how he's able to take down Superboy. This is as we said before, a very powerful Superboy, but Karate Kid's able to use his body weight, able to use the science of judo and karate, which again, back in the 60s had its own little supernatural element to it.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Oh God, and no one understood it because of, again, cultural limitations. A lot of times they wouldn't teach outsiders the arts. And it's not like it is today where there's a studio wherever you go. This was a personalized family to family kind of training. This wasn't a commercial enterprise back in the 60s. So I loved seeing Karate Kid being able to do what he does. And it's, again, in the end, Superboy gets him and wins it. But again, because he's Superboy and he's got to kick it up a notch. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk like he thought it was going to be when he first showed up there. But I like the fact that seeing he wins, but again, because he took Superboy to the limit, hey, yeah, we want this guy on the team.
He's also doing the shell game here, which Shooter, I really like what he's doing here. He's trying to spend a little more time on Karate Kid on purpose because of what he's trying to build here is this setting up the stage for Karate Kid's The Traitor. And I really liked what he was doing here. I thought this was really strong writing choices. Let's kind of keep the other people in the background because I want you looking at Karate Kid. And you really need to be looking at Karate Kid because Karate Kid's got something going on with him. And I really liked what he was doing. I'm like, this is really smart. I don't think any of us fell for it, but I like that he was building what the Legion was seeing and setting up this environment, because sometimes it's fun as a reader when you're going through, and I don't know if maybe I just knew Nemesis Kid, like I might be a victim here of knowing what happens with Nemesis Kid. So I say that, but is it really that I wouldn't have known that at the time, or that I just know who Nemesis Kid is? And I think that might be my problem.
When my wife and I watch Law and Order, we're always like, okay, how much time do they spend on somebody? All right, that's the killer.
Yeah,
that's the guy. That's the guy that did it. And using the Law and Order theory, it would be everything's pointing to Karate Kid.
Yes, and
where that rolls right into the next issues on who was the culprit, who was the inside man.
It's funny because now we're going back and we're reading the past, and again, as little as I know about Legion, I knew who Karate Kid was. I knew who the princess was. And we're talking about Ferro Lad. So I'm like, he's not the traitor. They wouldn't do a book about the life and death of a traitor. So I'm like, it had to be Nemesis Kid for me because I didn't know any of his future stuff that he pops back into Legion stories. But again, it's like you, Sean, I was like, I appreciated how much time they're putting into Karate Kid. Again, because later on they start throwing him as the possible villain, and again, this was brilliant writing in that if I didn't know what I know, if this was reading when it first came out, I would be right along with them thinking it was Karate Kid was the traitor, and I thought that's brilliant writing on his part.
He was building a case to the point of the Law and Order reference. I thought it was really smart. I liked the Kunian reference there because that's a classic DC race, and I love just this idea of these aren't things that are in recent years. It's great to see the classic races in there and that we get to see these characters keep popping up.
You say class, I mean, these guys appear in this arc and then they disappear until Invasion.
Yeah. I mean,
they're gone for 20, 30 years. I can't remember. Invasions was when I was in college because I couldn't afford buying it. So 90s. So yeah, these guys appear, but again, a lot of those invasion races were created in Legion of Superheroes, the Durlans, the Daxamites, the Kurds, and some of them were created by Jim Shooter during his runs because he liked bringing in other groups other than the Earthlings. I do like the fact that the Science Police isn't like Starfleet.
Yes.
We're still using money. There's still, it's not the perfect utopia, that we sometimes saw in 60s science fiction, that there's still problems. You still need a police force. Yeah, maybe they're going after superpowered metahumans, but you still need a group to keep the peace within the borders.
Which I think is more realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to see advancement, you want to see society moving forward and things like that. And I love that Shooter was thinking in those directions. But I like that the Legion, when you read it, it is like we want to achieve that idea. We want to get to that point. It actually strangely seems more attainable just because of the fact. And I think that part is you can connect to it and say that, look, I think our society could get there.
It's also a 13-year-old in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's one of the things. Like just before Shooter passed, my daughter just turned 10, and we were able to talk with him a little bit at GalaxyCon, where Sean and I last saw each other. And my daughter was completely fascinated that he was writing comic books at 13.
Yeah.
And was just talking to him. I think the only other time she had that much awe of somebody is when she met Kevin Smith. So.
But it's a great story for kids. And I think Kevin Smith falls into that category too for the same reason, because he started young. You know what I mean? I think these are creators who have followed their passions, and I think it's a good message for kids as far as don't give up on your passion. Start developing a passion. Get these things, right. Even if along the way that passion changes or diverts and things like that, just start realizing.
I don't know if I can watch K-pop Demon Hunters one more time in my house. But
one of the things I love, and it's in this series, but anytime we go back and look at comics from 60s, 50s and whatnot, or movies, I love how the present day references get tied into.
Yeah.
And I also love the fact that we want a futuristic weapon or a car, put a big bubble on it. You know, yeah. I love that. But I'll be honest with you, I want a car that's got a big bubble on it as opposed to a roof. I think that would look just cool. I'd like to create some of these things and actually have that be my real vehicle.
Well, I need to go back and look. Every time I see the old Legion of Superheroes clubhouse, I still love how it's a clubhouse. It's not a headquarters. Is it a Tesseract? It's so much bigger on the inside. And I don't know if they ever address that, because I mean, Superman doesn't get the Legion of the Fortress of Solitude doesn't become a Tesseract until in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's like, do they ever broach the subject of how they fit all that stuff in there?
That's science. It's science.
And the fact that all three of us got these science references.
Showing our age, good gentlemen, showing our age.
Yes.
The tower being destroyed. I'm looking at that sequence right now. And it again starts setting the stage for actually a potential for it, because Karate Kid's knocked out there conveniently. And I love that they're walking in on that sequence, but the door says a story. That's right. I mean, I just feel like the evidence pointing all of that. It was one of those things that I think it's where you become a seasoned reader. You're looking at the evidence is pointing a little too much to Karate Kid.
Yeah.
In comics, which I love. I mean, I love that you're like sitting there going, I get it, guys, but isn't that evidence just a little way too convenient? Like he's obviously not trying to cover up anything here.
I love how it's very Batman 66. This is Defense Tower number 2. Not number 2, number 1.
Yeah. What was interesting in some of the intro and the conclusion piece was the fact that like two-parters and things like that, and makes sense during the era, was not very common. So there were things that Shooter was doing here that, again, was because of the fact that, and based on my experience of how I picked up some of these comics, even from like flea markets and things like that, a lot of them were singleton issues. I remember my first Marvel team-up book that I have strong memories of, and I don't know that it's necessarily the first Marvel team-up I read, but it's the one that stands out for me, was Spider-Man and Iron Fist, which was a two-parter. The Iron Fist was taken away from Iron Fist, and that's where I was left hanging for years. And I read that issue over and over again. I loved that issue because I'm an Iron Fist junkie, and I never saw the conclusion until I had been in college, that there was an opportunity to get it in some form of Marvel team-up collection. But that's kind of what happened when you got two-parters sometimes, is you didn't have the opportunity because we didn't have comic shops. We had newsstands.
Oh, yeah.
And being able to collect and seek those things out was not a ready option.
I don't think people truly realize the difference that the direct market made.
Yes.
I mean, I worked at a comic book store, the same comic book store that I had gone to when I was in middle school and when I was in grade school. And it was just fascinating to go, okay. And then also remember was your collection the newsstand edition or was it the direct market edition?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the books in this period, trying to find one that's greater than an 8.2 is going to be hard because a lot of them have that break in the spine where it was on the spinner rack and it would get folded over because you're going through the spinner rack trying to find your issues. I remember going to Walden Books and trying to look through. That's where I bought my copy of Christ on Infinite Earth 12. It was a newsstand edition with got a crack in the spine. Still have it. Had George Perez autograph it for me. It's like, this is ugly. I'm like, yes, it is.
I remember I went to French's Pharmacy a lot, and they were mixed in with magazines.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was in there. I mean, there was a 7-Eleven, there was a French's Pharmacy. I don't remember, Jim, you'll remember we had a grocery Holzheimer's. I don't remember Holzheimer's having comics. But I remember like when my family was at Holzheimer's, I would, hey, can I walk down to French's? And it was all about comics going on because it was weird that a pharmacy had the best selection, but they did. But you had to find them. And sometimes I think it was deliberate. Kids would hide them behind the magazines. So that way you come back later and your odds are pretty good that it might still be there if you were like really careful on where you hung it. Except we all knew that other kids were doing that. So we went digging to try and find them. And usually you'd find gold behind some of those other magazines.
Yeah, the direct market had gotten much bigger in Florida than it did in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. I mean, I lived in Orlando for 38 years. And if it wasn't for Frank Dowler and Enterprise 1701, I don't think the comic book. Now, Coliseum Comics is one of the largest comic book groups. My best friend from high school works there. And they've got a number of stores and the market's just gotten so much better, but trying to find those issues. Oh my, trying to do the search and then heaven forbid that issue you need is a key and suddenly it's on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't afford the $10 new Teen Titans one. That just seems so weird to say now, but still not being able to, I remember going to comic book conventions and every year I have a grail that I'm looking for. Right now it's Batman 342. For less than 600. So it's like, I'm always looking for this particular grail that I can get a copy of and add to my collection. And it's like, it prevents that only buy books that were printed before I was born. Makes it easier to find stuff and to look for stuff and to pick what I'm going to buy and what I'm not going to buy. But locally, recently when I've been going to conventions, my daughter comes away with more stuff than I do, which I never thought would happen. But yeah.
Well, that's how it should be.
I guess. She's got her Sailor Moon. She's got all of her Sailor Moon stuff now, her K-pop Demon Hunter stuff, and whatever she's looking for now. It's just it's crazy town.
You were mentioning covers before, and I'm looking at 347 and the cover of that one, and you're right,
very action oriented.
Yeah, very action. But also,
Jim was looking for right here.
Yeah. Yep. Also, you mentioned the link to the story. This is actually a cover that is teasing you into where they want you going as you're walking into this issue. So if you missed issue 1, they've done on the cover a great job of bringing you up to speed on where your head should be if you somehow didn't read 346. And this is an era where you needed to do this. And I actually really appreciated the cover and what it was trying to do. And because the title of the story is The Traitor's Triumph.
Well, if you'll notice on the first page, there is no credits.
Right.
Okay. And I can't remember. Shooter starts doing some penciling as well. Again, 14-year-old Jim Shooter is doing penciling for one of DC's, because Adventure Comics is a key book at this point.
Right.
It was featuring Superboy. It was one of those books that was driving a lot of those early sales, but we don't see any. We don't know who the artist is. We don't know who the inkers are. We don't, unless we would have been this collected edition. We would have bought this off the shelf. We would have really no idea who would have. And it was Traitors of Triumph, I think, is the issue in which someone wrote into the readers section and said, "Hey, who wrote this? I want to know so I can follow what they do." And that's how Jim was presented as the writer of this run.
Which is way cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In that era. I mean, just the fact that people are identifying that because it's something I don't remember when and Chris Claremont was the first writer I started following, and it was Uncanny X.
Right. Yeah.
It just kind of drew me into that.
Orphan was mine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that just opened up a floodgate. Then I wanted to know who the artists were. I wanted to know all those pieces along the way. And it just started just making me incredibly interested in following people as much as characters. Which led me to just a wealth of story. But to be able to look at this story and go, this is something different. Oh, I want to see more of this. And because that means that the reader was recognizing there's somebody different writing now. and
right. Yeah.
Something. Yeah. That's pretty slick.
Changed. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get why they're doing it, because this story's got so much in it. I do love the inner dialogue where you've got the seasoned members of the Legion, they're flying along with Karate Kid, but keeping the enemy closer is what they're doing at the moment. Because let's verify what's going on here. Because Houston, I think we've got a problem, but it's Karate Kid. I love so much about where this story goes, because there's so much to laugh at about this one.
Oh yeah.
Because wait, if I'm Nemesis Kid right now, I've gotten away with this.
Yes. Yeah.
And he could have gone all in at getting away with this one. I love where this goes, because I feel it's so much more realistic than if we'd done the traditional, he gets busted. He busted himself. And I just love how this whole thing goes because of the layout of this issue. It really is. All arrows are pointing at it's Karate Kid.
Right. And one of the things, just for the bad guy getting busting himself, that's something we see a lot in, I know in the 80s TV shows, that was constantly happening. Yeah. But again, this is the 60s. This is before that. So this is, again, going back to a kid coming up with this idea of, hey, let's have the bad guy bust themselves. That'd be kind of a neat little twist on it. I'm like, it's something that just amazes me that, reading it again, first time reading through, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's cool, sure. Then you go back and you're thinking about this stuff and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Now, Jim had mentioned earlier about character death and character death meaning something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this issue, we see some full shots of Lightning Lad. Now, you gotta remember that Lightning Lad had already died, come back, lost his arm, and got a new arm. And that was one of the things that Jim had mentioned, that it was the fact that Lightning Lad, every time Lightning Lad would get hurt, okay, fine, we fixed it. Or when Triplicate girl loses one of her bodies, she just becomes duo damsel. There's no ramifications. There's no long-term effects to any of that. It's like, oh yeah, just give him an extra arm. Why did we bother killing him off if we're just going to bring him back? They used to say, no one stays dead in comics except for Jason Todd, Bucky, and Barry Allen. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And
he's just the Waynes and Uncle Ben now, so.
Yeah, right. I just noticed this now, when Superboy's dividing up the team, because, they're suspecting a traitor here right now. Let's split up into two teams and see, what ends up shaking out with that whole piece. When they're all flying out, I didn't even notice at the time that sitting down below them was Nemesis Kid and Karate Kid together. I love that. I mean, that's something too that it's more common to see those Easter eggs now where there's little pieces like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Again, I just think another thing of just adding a little depth of that. And those two, the moment that those two first started being together was as the team split up, which sets up a much later sequence in there. And I love little details like that. Again, I think it just shows, a depth of writing and a depth of art that we're used to seeing today. And these are why these guys are legends. The stuff that they were doing back then is something that our creators today are pulling from.
Yeah, remember, Nemesis Kid has to have something that contradicts something else.
Yeah.
Can't just manifest a power. So something had to happen for him to be able to turn those on, or he had to get through the steel door. He has to be able to stop a barrier of some sort.
I do love these wacky 60s costumes. I'm looking at Light Lass with the, because so much of their costumes work. I mean, they're futuristic. It's in the future, we are still wearing heels.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, some of Supergirl's outfits during this time period are my favorite.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they're just, I think my personal favorite is the 80s when she had the breast logo.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my favorite Supergirl costume. But during this period, it's pretty crazy. Karate Kid. Yes, make sure he has a black belt.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that there's a point in time where the squad that went off into the battle is fighting. And again, everybody has kryptonite. Oh, it must have a kryptonite base. Of course it would have a kryptonite base. Why? Because you can get it anywhere in this.
Yeah, I could synthesize it. Come on.
Well, also could be Nemesis. Help them out with that.
Yeah. Jim just found the secret Easter egg.
Yeah.
This one.
Very good point.
Now, how does Lightning Lad use his metal arm for his powers?
Well, I'm assuming that his body is the conductor, and that's just like an extra metal is.
I think it would just blow the arm off. It would just start flying off with the.
Oh, I thought you rig up.
Oh, that's me going.
The wiring inside, so it travels down the wires to the fingers, and yeah.
I still want to read up on that arm now, just to see if the writers.
Lightning Lad's death is interesting. It's I don't know if it's collected anywhere. I mean, you may be able to find it on the app.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine who was really big into Legion, and he got them when they were still keys in the 80s. But when keys back then were maybe $20. I think I saw a copy of Giant Size X-Men in that period for $150. It's back when keys were a little bit easier to get a hold of. And he also had he had a much better job than I did.
I know the basics of the story, and I don't remember if I read it in a collected edition or if I read it in a.
It may be in the Legion archives, the silver cased books.
Yeah,
I have one or two of those because originally I had this story in that, but the print work on those books were terrible, so I ended up getting rid of all of them.
I get where I'm going with that is I know the story of his death and return. I don't know if it is a retelling of it. You know what I'm saying?
Because they did do a lot of on the giant size ones.
Yes,
they would do it because Proteus is retained to be Lightning Lad, and then giving up his own life. Because are you familiar with Proteus?
Not at all.
Yeah, much like Morph from Treasure Planet. Very, very gooey looking thing. I have no idea where it was very much magical powers on how he was able to pretend to be Lightning Lad. It's interesting. You got to go read it. We got to figure out where it's available. So, but yeah, the Lightning Lad's death it was not very permanent, much like most deaths in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Ferro Lad stayed dead as long as Ferro Lad stayed dead. I don't know if we're going to cover the SW6 at all in this, but yeah.
We may talk about it briefly just because I think it's interesting as far as talking about the character itself,
right?
And what they were trying to do there was interesting. The Ceylon base, when that whole situation happens, I love the bit where apparently Cosmic Boy can't count.
No,
because he's sitting there saying one character is gone. I love that attention to detail too, because it was not one character that was gone. And I love the artwork on that one because Nemesis Kid is also not there. And that piece is like really strong because I didn't notice it in my first read through. It wasn't until the second time through that I'm like, wait a minute. Like, he wasn't there. Cosmic Boy can't count.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how he became the time trapper in one of his futures if he can't count it all. So yeah.
But that goes to show that, like, at this point in time, the evidence has been so overwhelming that you're starting to now get sloppy.
Right.
And I think that is common when you start getting overconfident. I know what's happening now. You stop looking at the details because you think you've got your smoking gun. And I felt like that's genuine. I didn't think there was.
Oh, you're getting blinders on. Yeah.
And I think that's true. That's very, very common, especially with what they walk into at the end of part 1, where it does look like Karate Kid's just tearing the place apart.
Yeah.
Legion, that's one thing we haven't really talked about is the issue layout. This is very common in Silver Age, this part 1, part 2, and things like that, whereas we don't see that in comics today. I mean, usually the comic is the issues are part 1 and part 2 and part 3 and part 4. You don't have the breakdowns in the individual issues like you did. I wonder what led to that.
I was wondering if Adventure was an anthology book during this period.
Oh, yeah.
I had to go look because if it was an anthology book, it would make more sense because you would write in 2 parts, and if they decide to put both parts in the same issue or not, that's one of the things I meant to look up before the recording because it's like I wasn't sure, like, when did the Kurds appear again? It was like, was Adventure a anthology book in the mid 60s or not? Because that would make much more sense. Also, kids don't read. We're talking about the average age of readers in the 60s. I mean, the adult reader doesn't really start kicking in until the 70s.
True.
What's the bite size of a kid being able to read their comics and where they were reading them or how they were reading them? I was reading comics in school when I should be doing algebra.
That's what folders were for.
Yeah.
Not that I did that. I've heard.
No, yeah, I saw that in a movie once.
Yeah, but it looked like something kids would do. I mean, it's.
Well, I'll admit it. I did that.
Yeah, I gotta be the proper role model for my child, Jim.
Yeah,
you got to be a role model. Sean's a teacher. I can do what I want.
Yeah. Here's the thing: Ken and I weren't fooling anybody.
Oi.
Part 2, when it kicked off, and I couldn't wait to get to this part. I obviously
monologuing.
Yeah,
there was this kid's monologuing.
I mean, I love that Superboy goes running right in part 2.
Yeah.
And like is basically saying it's no use running or hiding. And I love that Nemesis kid who got away with it. Scott is basically sitting here. Oh, they figured me out, so I'm going to jump out. And I love that nobody actually did. I think that is so brilliant. It's just such an interesting plot twist because you could have done the traditional story. No, like there isn't a member of the Legion that looks like the sharp sleuth in this one. And I love that. I just thought it was a smart choice, something edgy, something a little bit different. It seems like a weird thing to say, but in comics, like a lot of times there is the A to B and you want the hero to look like the hero of the whole thing. This one, they didn't do that. And I actually love the story all the more because they didn't. I just find this like endearing and fascinating.
And I love the look on Karate Kid's face. I absolutely love, again, talk about artwork and all that stuff. I love the, kind of look on his face of, wait, and he's just about to say, but I didn't do it. And when Nemesis kid jumps in. Again, a little bit of just you got him, and like he looks completely guilty in the one panel. And then when Superboy says, "We know you did this," the look on his face was absolutely brilliant. I love this artwork. I love the look of this book. And again, going back to what I said previously, this right here, it's classic comic art, but it still gives us enough detail on the facial expressions, still gives us some of that stuff. Modern artwork takes it even to another level of how much detail they put on the face, but there's still plenty of emotion conveyed in that one panel of Karate Kid's look. And then you got the little dialogue overhead just really bringing it home. So for me, I loved that panel, love this page. And like you said, Sean, I love the fact that the villain got away with it. All he had to do is just slip away behind him. Yeah, there he is.
Did he really get away with it? I mean, they did have a spare tower in reserve.
Well, that's super.
So I don't know if he would have gotten away with it. He just wouldn't have been caught.
Yes.
Maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but
no. You're actually correct because I do love that the story, it does lead to the heroic.
By the by, we had a spare tower.
You mentioned something about the art, Jim, that I want to touch on just really quick. Kurt Swan is a legend, and for all the right reasons. What I'd love to have seen, I mean, this is something, if you go back to the Wayback Machine and bring him to today, just knowing what printing was like and what you could do with it, it'd be funny to see some of these masters of the past, because you figure you're drawing to the medium, right? What your end product's going to be, what the limitations are of the medium that you're dealing with, and what print is going to look like. So this is not even what we're seeing in front of us right now. Kurt Swan was not looking at this and saying, this is what's going to wind up in front of the readers. It isn't.
Right.
So he knew that as an artist, that this was going to be the case. My gosh, what this guy could have done if he had known what was available today. This is stunning right now as it is. And this is held back by the limitations of the time.
I had mentioned Hunger Dogs earlier in the recording. I mean, that's Jack Kirby doing work in the modern age. I mean, that graphic novel is at high price. It's on white paper. That is prime work being done by a Silver Age legend. And to look at that and what he did in it, it really, I like to say that it made my eyes bleed. It's that dense. And then George Perez was, I guess, isn't he? He was the last of the Silver Age artists. And he was able to work with the modern tools just because he was so much younger when he started. But to see Kurt Swan, if he was able to work with hi-fi colors, he was to be able to go the color depth that we have now versus a traditional four color comics would be very interesting to see what direction he would have gone. Because this Superman is not, it's not the Dan Jurgens Superman. It's not the John Byrne Superman. It is I am normal man. I just happen to be Kryptonian and have super strength. I'm not out there getting all buffed up. I just look like a guy. That's why his Clark Kent was a little bit easier to fathom than Clark Kent's later on. It's pretty hard to explain. Super buff reporter.
Absolutes were mentioned earlier. And the fact that we're probably not going to get some Silver Age absolutes. The only area where I think we might have some small, tiny glimmer of hope, they're collecting the Kirby stuff. Right. In absolutes, which I know is later. But if that stuff does well, I
love all that Fourth World stuff.
Oh, yes.
You got it all in a hardcover.
I'm just hoping it does well, and then they might consider, maybe let's take a chance on doing some of the older material.
I remember when they did the Absolute Sandmans.
Yeah.
That they had to call back people who had bought original art because they had to have those original boards to be able to create the Absolute editions.
True.
I don't know if they're going to have enough, because I know a lot of this stuff was not given back to the artists. A lot of it was in the archives.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was some sales when DC wasn't doing real well. How much of this is out in the private market? How much of it, how many floods, fires? The stuff there's not going to be more. There's going to be less and less every year. And that's one of the things. I think this is about the best we're going to do of being able to get color corrected.
It's great.
And it's great. I would like to see oversized, but then again, the last time I pulled out an Absolute edition, because I just have no real good way to read them. I've tried many different ways, but I just can't get an Absolute edition down. And I'm not Superman buff. I can't hold one of those for extended periods.
I pay the neighbors' kids like they're
there you go.
To come over and they hold, each one of them holds like side of it. Here's your $20.
There you go.
I do love the swerve of this one that they had the Electro Tower.
Yeah.
That they dodged the bullet off of that piece because it's smart. You've got a traitor. So at this point in time, you know that you're following along with the traitor for the purpose of trying to rat this person out so that way you stop. Like, it's been multiple mishaps that have happened. I did love seeing the heroes having something as a backup plan and having to keep it close to the chest. Basically saying, we're not telling anybody we did this, but we've got a secret thing going on. So they kept it even within their team, not many people knew that this was done because they really did not know who the traitor was. And I like that was a thing that even though everyone was pointing at Karate Kid, they were not 100% sure, so did not fully go all in on that. That part, it was, I thought, another brilliant layer to the story, because you do not want your heroes to look like dolts. I liked this. I liked that they didn't actually know who it was, but I love that there was a backup plan that shows that these are competent people. This is layered storytelling at its finest when you're like, but wait, the heroes did do something and here's what they did instead. And I thought that was great. It was a great choice.
Now, trying to figure out on this, I went back and read, and I couldn't find it. Why they're all jumping on these jet platforms when they all have Legion flight rings. I know that Karate Kids is malfunctioning, but it's like, why did they need to have?
I'll tell you why. If you look at some of the later issues in this one, nobody seems to wear them when they need to. Like, there was a part where they did the alert later on, and it's later, one of the later issues. Like, remember the Cosmic Boy gets scolded at some point in time because, hey, if you had just been wearing your ring, you would have gotten the alert right there. Nobody seems to wear them. If I had a Legion ring, it'd be on 24/7 for every reason that you're saying.
I used to wear my replica all the time. People ask me all the time what the hell that thing was.
That would be my first meeting. It would be like sitting here, guys, we got a problem. We have these wonderful rings and none of you dolts are wearing them.
Leaving this ring at home. And that one is why is Shrinking Violet on one of these things? What is she gonna do? What is her power gonna do with this group? Anybody should have stayed back. Of course, Chameleon Boy's gonna save her because she was getting on a jet platform. They're gonna shrink and go in through the vents or something. I mean, if she doesn't have a Legion flight ring, she can't shrink the jet platform.
Right. But it's the Legion.
It's the Legion.
I do. Chameleon Boy is another character that I appreciate his visual presence.
Oh yeah. Durlans are a great race.
Yeah.
If you ever read Legion, which was the offshoot of Invasion,
yes,
we start seeing Durlans and how they operate and go into the more extreme version of what a Durlan, because it's like, yes, he has this look throughout the 60s. If you're a true shape changer, are you really is that the look you're gonna have? Is that the body you're gonna pick?
That was my first time I started reading Legion monthly.
Okay.
I know. I mean, I want to be very clear. I understand that that's not true Legion, if you want to get, but Invasion was something I ended up getting pulled in by the Daily Planet. You went into the comic shop and they had this great promo where you could actually walk out with a copy of the Daily Planet.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
And it had the front page article about the Invasion. That as a geek, I was like sitting here, what is this Invasion thing?
Well, I mean, Invasion brought a lot of these Legion superheroes races to the modern day.
Sure did.
It also introduced the idea of the metagene did not exist prior to Legion, because that's when the Dominators try to kill everybody when they got 100 humans and they find out how many end up having a metagene. That's when Snapper Carr gets powers.
Yes.
So, yeah, that group did not last very long. Invasion, Mon-El Valor was the best thing that came out of Invasion.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of Valor because I was a big Mon-El fan. So, and we also get Legion 5 years later because of Invasion as well. So
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember reading Invasion.
it's a hard read. Read.
Yeah, I don't remember reading it. I wrote it down.
I know Sean's not very negative on things, but Invasion is one of those things you have to read if you want to understand X, Y, and Z. And that's much like Millennium, another crossover event that's a real hard read.
I enjoyed Invasion when it came out.
Yeah, I only read it collected. Yeah. I never bought the issues.
So, but I think, remember, look what my reference is. I walked out with this Daily Planet.
Well, yeah.
I'm not like sitting here going, my gosh, like, what about this story beat? You didn't love that? No, it was that piece and the fact that some of the things that you mentioned that they introduced. I was an Uncanny X-Men fan at the time. I was obviously, Batman was my guy, but it's like, oh, DC's doing something. What is this poster? Let me grab this. And I ended up reading it. I liked it at the time, but it's not sticking into my brain. Like, there's classic stories where you sit there and start regurgitating this, and this. The metagene was the one thing that stood out to me because I was a mutant fan at the time. Right. And I'm like sitting here like, oh, DC's introducing mutants.
And yeah, that's one thing that where I had a problem. Is like, it basically made every DC hero either an alien or a mutant.
Yes.
And I was not a real big fan of that. I was just like, I still like...
It was such a response to X-Men.
Right. And it was also, how do people get their powers? Why do certain people get the powers? Why do certain people don't? It was very much the mutant hype. But also, during this period, the DC crossover events... I did a panel at Florida Comics Experience ages ago that basically covered every DC crossover event from Crisis on Earth 2 all the way through to Infinite Crisis. And the 90s crossover events, Bloodlines, Invasion, Millennium, they are got to be some of the weakest of the crossover events that DC put out during that period. You're coming out of Legends, which was a very good one.
Yes.
And the Millennium, and you're like, what? Oh, huh? It's like creative was not on. And then you just roll straight into Death of Superman and then Invasion on the other pieces. So it's a real downturn on the DC annual crossover. And again, this is when the crossover events had to be annual. That's when you had Mutant Massacre and you had, Extinction Agenda, Executioner. So you had all that every year. Everybody's got to get together. We got to get sales up. So
yeah. And it became yearly. It was a churn.
Yes, it was a churn. It was a grinder.
Yeah.
Grinder.
Yeah. But Invasion, Jim, I think we should probably do at some point in time just because.
Now, I would do Legends before.
I've actually told him before, did you ever read Legends, Jim?
No.
And if you're a
Sean Byrne at his best.
And if you're a Shazam fan, it's a great story.
Still Captain Marvel back then.
Yes.
So, yeah. And it's really Amanda Waller appears.
Yeah.
We get the relaunch of the Suicide Squad. Legends is an excellent. What are we going to do now after Crisis on Infinite Earths? It's the launch of the new Justice League. It's all that precursor of that early 90s DC. We haven't gotten our act together after Crisis yet, and it's before 0 Hour. What are we going to do kind of stuff?
If you look at things like Absolute Power now.
Yeah.
And you can go back to Legends, and there's themes in that they were exploring back in Legends.
Yep.
And they did it through a lot of the fourth world characters, and they did it
in Godfrey.
Yeah. It's such a great story.
Oh, and the demagogue mentality, the cult of personality.
Yeah.
Really rings true in today's world, because G. Gordon Godfrey I'm interested in how James Gunn's going to use him, because he has been listed on a short list of fourth world characters. And I guess the look on Jim's face, he's never heard of G. Gordon Godfrey.
You've seen the character before.
Yeah. He's one of Darkseid's minions. He's his propagandist. He's the individual that praises of Darkseid and how Darkseid's the greatest in his own point of view. But yeah.
And it fit very well in today's society.
Oh yeah. Legends, it's great because that's where you got to bring me back for a Legends discussion, guys, because I talk for hours on that one.
Oh, we should do Legends. We'll make that a point to do that at some point. I'd love to do Legends. My reason why saying we should do Invasion is because I don't remember it beyond the Daily Planet cover. So, that says something, because usually crossover stories that
I should tell you exactly how good it was then.
But I think I think that might be the people are looking for ones that I might think is lackluster. That might be one of them. But I don't rush to those either, because of the fact that in this same conversation, then we went to Legends and I'm like, oh, I love that. Yeah. So it's like if I'm going to prioritize something, I'm like, oh, I'd like to read that again. Whereas it says something that I'm not like rushing to read Legends. I mean, Invasion again.
It's Invasion. Yeah. I think the original trade on that was printed in newsprint. That tells you how much they thought of that.
Yes. Oh, because you're right. That was an era where then trades, when they started doing trade treatments, then they were usually doing a quality trade treatment.
But some of the other ones were like, oh, we're putting out Mon-El, because it was because they were putting Valor out.
Yeah.
They need to put Invasion out in a collected edition. And so they put on newsprint, and it doesn't age well. I have my copy still, and it deteriorates. So if it had some value, I probably would have bagged and boarded it. But those books are, I think we're the only people on the internet that have talked about Invasion in the last 3 years. I love how Karate Kid can chop through steel. I didn't see Ralph Macchio doing any of that stuff. So.
No, I think William Shatner did.
Yes. The Shat can do anything.
On the Battle of the Network Stars.
Oh man.
He does kind of remind me of him a little bit in the whole look of him. Back in the day, he would have been a great Karate Kid.
Yes. Well, I was looking at how many, I know we have 3 Invisible Kids eventually. Mm-hmm. And I think we have at least 2 Karate Kids through attrition. I don't remember if they die or they quit, but because I remember when the SW6 show up, there's at least 2. So. But again, I love they couldn't keep the Kurds look consistent. Now they look completely different. This must have been the special forces or the generic ground troopers versus the infiltration group in the previous one. It's like we couldn't keep what the aliens look like. Continuity, we're looking at where that goes and how that works at this point.
So I'm looking at the ending of this story, and I think it's intriguing because, again, usually there's a conclusion where the heroes win. They did, but the villain gets away. And I love that
he's Nemesis' kid, so he's got a power, but he doesn't even know what his power was that he used to get away.
Right.
They don't even know what power he used to get away. Did he teleport? Did he move to a different dimension? Did he turn to smoke to go invisible?
I love it.
It's like, okay, they did like some Martian Manhunter thing and become invisible and unable to he could phase through matter. It's like, what did he do? Oh, and that's basically where will we see him again?
It's a pretty strongly realized character, though, for such a short arc for a very young writer. And I was sitting here like, wow, what a fascinating way to wrap this up, sort of. Because it does leave the door open for him to come back in the future, which I think is great. And it's just really interesting.
There is one point, though, that something I just noticed, and I just noticed it now. So we got the great sequence, Karate Kid chopping through steel and taking down the bad guy. Back at the clubhouse, they're like, it's been hours since Karate Kid left. And that's when they said, why don't we start searching? It's been hours, and they're just now saying, why don't we search for him?
But he's wearing his ring. They should be able to know where he's at. Because it malfunctioned. So that's probably why he didn't know where he was, because of the ring malfunction. I'm answering my own questions. By the by, where did that new character that we just introduced 2 issues ago went?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm looking at the cover right now of 352. And I mean, why this? So again, to the point of what we were discussing earlier, Legion's known for epics, right? Where, I mean, it's something, if you are a fan of the Legion, or even if you've casually heard about the Legion, one of the things that you hear is that they've had these epic, longer form stories.
Yeah, we already talked about Great Darkness Saga before. There's some big arcs, and this is one of the first ones.
Yes.
This is one of the first real big ones. Where you had to keep track of everything. And we are introducing, I did not realize, so I read this and I did some research. This is the introduction of the Fatal Five.
Yeah.
Okay. I did not realize Jim Shooter created the Fatal Five. I mean, these are 5 Legion villains that'll appear time and time and time again. Gladius's origin is just crazy town. If you go back and read exactly where he came from, I'm just like, it talks about, I mean, you start retconning a lot of stuff, like how they've retconned the Emerald Empress into being an offshoot of the Green Lantern power battery, and some of these other characters and what they can do. And we just want to get our first introduction to these villains and why we need them. But they make it sound like these villains have been around forever.
Yes.
They know them. They know these villains exist. So when I read it, I didn't realize that this was the first appearance of them.
And they're looking for notorious criminals because of the fact that the rest of the Legion is unable to make it back in time. I really liked the idea of, we've put the rest of them on the table and set up this intriguing reason why they've got to partner with criminals. This is stuff that you don't see very often in comics from this era. We're much more used to seeing villains and heroes team up now for wacky reasons. This is, again, cutting edge stuff that really worked well.
Now, do the Fatal Five predate the Legion of Supervillains? Or I'm not sure where they fit in, because I know they appeared later on in this run, but I don't remember if they appear before. Is the Fatal Five the first true villains that the Legion goes against?
I feel like the Legion of Supervillains existed already at this point.
Because, again, the Legion of Supervillains are just analoguses of the Legion. It's
right.
Lightning Lord and Saturn Queen, versus these are completely different characters, got completely different skill sets, completely different powers, except for Vladis, than the Legionnaires have. So we got a completely different group of people here, and how they can assist.
They do. 1961 was their first appearance.
Okay. So they do predate the
Superman 147 was the first appearance of the Legion of Supervillains. So
did you watch the Fatal Five animated movie?
I did.
Okay.
Jim, did you get a chance to see that one? I know I watch more of the animated movies than you do.
Nah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's in the Timverse. Bruce Timm has said that it is part of the Timverse. So
nice.
So looking at I really love the opening sequence because it has that splash page where the To Save a Galaxy, and this is classic comics, right? Where you've got the villains teamed up against the heroes, and it's just a splash page that doesn't really happen that the way that it's laid out here. You get to see something later on going on with them, but I love when it's teasing that they're going to team up with these villains and it is not going to go well. No. And it's meant to be a hook, and it's an appropriate hook because it is foreshadowing something. But right, I just love the way that it so fits the comics I grew up with and just makes me smile when I see it. And then it just pulls back and starts setting the stage for what's going on.
It looks like Alfred in space here.
It does look like Alfred
in space.
I would read that comic.
Yeah,
Alfred in space. They could just put that on the cover, and I'd read Alfred.
I still, again, everything has to be labeled.
Yes,
that's Warring Station 156.
Yeah,
Got to be confused with Warring Station 155. It's a different one.
I love that they carved that into they carved an area in the rock to put the sign to let people know what station it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the villains know what station it is when they come by.
Yeah. Nice and convenient. I did like the Fatal Five, the creation of them.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, such genius when you're realizing that this was the first appearance. And a great job of laying out who the Persuader is and giving him some background and backstory on what he's done and why he would be somebody that you'd obviously want to watch, but also when you're in this dire of a situation, somebody you'd want to recruit. And they're going on the intrinsic value of we're all going to die. Right. These people are going to help us because we're all going to die. And I love that they never stop being villains.
Rock is I mean, his origin story is a little out there, but still, him as a character is got to be one of the more in-depth characters that we see through this piece.
Yes.
What he can do. Yes. Oh, we gave him a cyber brain, so that made him cyber evil, not just normal evil.
Cyber.
Yeah, it's like, okay. I mean, that he gets worse because they've given him their attempt to keep him alive has made their problems worse.
Yes. And I love the fact that with him, there's also that motivation of you've lost half of your body. So there's going to be some self-esteem issues. So he overcompensates by having, I am the greatest and I have got the smartest brain and things like that, which some he's got enhancements. That's true. But a lot of that you can play on that on a lot of levels of humanity as far as what is going on there. And I really love the fact that wow, we're really doing some wacky stuff with how in depth we're going with these characters. There's not a lot of two-dimensional characters here. And I really enjoy the fact that we're fleshing things out for you and making you really think with these characters from back in this era. You mentioned Silver Agey earlier, Jim, and I think it's worth referencing again that a lot of times when people talk about Silver Age, they think automatically that this was a very dumbed down era. And I think, unfortunately, some of the dialogue from the era that happens in a vast majority of Silver Age comic books gives the false impression of a lack of depth. And the reason why these characters, I think, have lasted so long, the ones that have been created, is because of the fact that that's the opposite of what was going on. There was a lot of layers to the storytelling that was going on. And I think this, because it does not have that beating you over the head with the ginchy cool dialogue and stuff like that, I think we're really seeing what some of the creators back in this era, the legends, were doing as far as, wow, no, we're going to kind of really go far with this. Because now you're dealing with kids, all of the people that were creating during that time, these are kids that grew up with Golden Age comics. So they're looking to do some of the things with comics that they wanted the comics that they read to do or loved about the comics that they were reading. So it's really great to be able to see this generation who is kicking beyond and building off of what their inspirations were doing beforehand. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Grant Morrison. But the fact that he has pulled a lot of his ideas from the Silver Age, that being able to go All-Star Superman, you start looking at Batman and Horror, But these are ideas that were brought forth during the Silver Age and late Golden Age, and he has used them tremendously in his storytelling to give them a modern spin. So I just can't get over Damian Wayne. So that's my issues with Grant Morrison. So, but
one of the things that I think you're touching on there that's important too is I think he's done something that some of the previous creators did as well. They created a lot of toys that people are still using today. I think some of the best things that came out of Grant Morrison were the things that other people took and went wild with and built upon. And I think that that's very much what the Silver Age was all about. They created a lot of this stuff that, inspired people to the point you referenced in Invasion. Like they pulled all of these
pulled everything in
from like the past that hadn't been seen for a long time versus creating new. It's where continuity, you mentioned editorial notes. I think one of the things that I always appreciated about editorial notes was this concept that behind the scenes, there's somebody that's looking.
Right.
To see what classic story this linked to. Hey, you're doing this. Why don't you link it to that? And I always loved that concept of what editors were and what they were doing back then, and wanting to go back and seek out these stories that there's so many in my childhood stories that I went bin diving for,
right,
because of a great editor's note.
And that's back to Stan Lee always saying that every comic is somebody's first comic.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't have all the backstory, how are you going to know? And the fact that the editors would do that allowed you, if you could get a copy, find out what happened, or you could figure out where this where it had gone. And like I said earlier, this is where a lot of my back issues came from. It's where I was searching through to find these stories. I mean, that's how I found the origin of Red Tornado. Is because I was reading something about the Tornado Tyrant, and they're like, "Oh, go back to look at Justice League of America 198." And I go, "Okay." Well, I went back and looked at, oh, there he is. There we go. Origin of Red Tornado. So I think it's lost, especially now we have the collected. You go back on the apps. You can now go and see these things. It's easier to go find these older issues to be that you're referencing back to than it was in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah. I'm looking at Emerald Empress and just the eye and the whole vibe and the look and things like that that is a well-crafted character.
Yes, but in as you look at later on, honestly, she's just a Green Lantern in a skirt.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so which came first? Her or the Green Lantern Corps?
Well, this is Silver Age, so I've already...
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hal Jordan of Aria have appeared in Showcase. So
okay. That's something I never knew.
We also still had Alan Scott. I mean,
yeah. This was Silver Age, so Green Lantern would have already kicked off again. The Flash would have already kicked off again.
This post dates Flash 123. Yeah. So I had to go look that up because of some other stuff I want to talk about later on. Flash 123 happened since 61, and this is 66. So
it's Validus, you mentioned him before, and it's a character who I've read enough of Validus at this point through just various storytellings that what a great Legion villain with and without the Fatal Five.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And his origin stories just makes it even more tragic.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming, Jim, you don't know Validus's origin.
I do not know the origin.
Oh, you go. That might be one you want to look on Wikipedia and read, because that's going to be some harder issues to find. But his backstory is very tied into the Legion.
Cool.
Yeah. You start going and you start reading these again. I know it's retcon that was not his origin when Jim Shooter created him. Jim has specifically said it was not, but some of these retroactive continuity does add depth to characters quite often. A lot more often than I'm willing to admit. So
yeah,
I'm not. Yeah, the retcon is always. I used to have a retcon song I'd sing at the comic book store whenever we get a new issue. That would happen retcon, because I was there. Yeah, for some of that really crazy. I was there when the Ultimates was released.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the books that went on I put on the shelf. Yeah, comic book stores back then. Crazy town.
Well, and retcons and new continuities almost became overdone.
Right.
Because of the fact that it was every time you blinked, they were restarting and redoing. And I think that worked financially for a certain amount of time. But I think what they found the diminishing returns.
Well, and Sean, you and I have talked about why I stopped reading comics consistently. Is the New 52 made me stop buying comics outright. My Mike McDaniel, who runs Heroes and Villains Comics in Warner Robins, Georgia, I was spending on close to $275 a week in his shop. Okay. And New 52 came out and I was buying Batgirl, and that was it.
Yeah.
I went to $299, and he was like, I don't know if I can afford you not buying comics, Ken. Now, that thing is, I've bought everything in trade since then. If you put anything in trade that happened prior to New 52, odds are I own it downstairs in the library. But I still have I tried to get back on Rebirth. So like when you guys, the only reason I know about any new comics is listening to your show. And it's like, oh, maybe I should pick that up. Maybe I should pick that up. But it's one of those that I'm still just reading the stuff that I was reading when I was kid. And then you add the Marvel stuff into that mix. I say kid, all the way up to age 30 something. So I have a hard time. I was there for the comic book burst, the comic book bubble. I was working in a comic shop when it happened. I find it very ironic that Jim Lee is running DC Comics since him and his boys almost destroyed the comic book industry in the 90s. I just find it very, very ironic. But there's some good stuff coming out, and I need to get back into reading some of it. I was hoping that Rebirth, I shed many a tear reading Flash Rebirth. It was the first time since reading Crisis on Infinite Earths 9 that I had actually wept reading a book. So
Rebirth was really good. And I think one of the things they've been doing, and I think they're still doing it with All In right now, is trying to put the puzzle pieces, the toys back in play.
Right.
And to try to find that right balance because what you've done is, in a weird way, you've got different audiences. You've got the new 52 generation that's coming. Now you've got your classic generation that you want to be able to feel connected to the comics again. We got a lot of comments during the New 52 era when it was coming out. There was a lot of people who were like, I'm jumping ship for this. That was pretty common.
I was able to buy a house after I stopped collecting comics. So it made that a little bit easier.
Yeah. Hey, question for you. Have you thought about going into like the app and you can go through and read some of this stuff without paying like your monthly for per issue, paying your application fee month?
When DC Unlimited launched originally, when it was a multimedia app where I was able to watch, the roast of a retired man. It was a treasure trove of stuff from my childhood, lost media. And I was that, but when they switched to the new model, I have not gone back for, and that's the other one. It's like, even the comics, like I read Absolute Power and I bought that as individual issues digitally, and I still had a hard time keeping up with that. There's just so much having a 10-year-old work. Xbox says I put 1,000 hours into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So there's a lot of other things in my queue. And then
gaming is a big drag for me. I love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I go to conventions. I don't know if Sean's told you, Jim, I own a good chunk of a convention business. So there's a lot of that. I'm going to have to go to Portland to help run an event again. So there's so many things in my wheelhouse that I've got. And just to look at my Comixology backlog, it's just crazy. Though the wife was getting upset that I have too many stuff on Kindle Unlimited, so she can't get her things. So I need to remove some of those pieces. But I've talked about doing digital. I'm much like Sean. I need to hold it, kind of thing. I had a hard time reading, and I'm over 50. My eyes are going. I have to have readers now if I want to read comics, and I have to have light. But Jim, one of the things I told Sean when he was asking if we wanted to do just do the 2 issues or the entire run, I like to say that I have a PhD in pre-crisis DC. That I did. My wife, my daughter's named Iris, and people think that she's named after the Irish of Notre Dame. No, No, she's named after Iris West Allen, and trying to explain to people, and her middle name's Diana. You figure out where that came from.
Nice.
But trying to explain to people where her name came from is just, I get these cross-eyed looks. They're like, but you have a signed picture of Joe Montana in your office. Yeah, I know I do. But yeah,
You would think nowadays, though, that I think that's becoming more common.
Yeah.
Especially when you got like people like Robin Williams naming his daughter after Zelda, the video game and stuff like that.
When we were watching Flash,
Yeah.
and Katie mentioned that she liked the name Iris, I turned to her and went, okay, we're going to do this. And I pulled out the DC encyclopedia and went, you're looking through every alter ego's first name.
Mhm.
And you're going through all of them. Because if we're going to go down this road, we're going to go down this road.
That's cool.
Iris is lucky she wasn't born a boy, because she probably would have been Newt Rockney Nabbe. Wife says that wasn't going to happen. My great grandfather's name was Newt, so it would have been a family name. So
I'm looking at Mano in the book.
Mano.
Yeah, I mean,
Every time I hear Mano, I just think of Manos, the Hand of Fate from.
I did too. I was thinking of that too, which is one of my favorite riff tracks. And it was
Such a limited ability. I love how just I hate these people. So just blow up the planet. Boom, done.
but again, it goes off of Shooter's kind of thing of let's get away from the
Point and shoot.
yeah.
None of these villains are point and shoot.
No,
Even Blast isn't point and shoot. He's like Zap Zap, brainwaves, but still. But I forgot that Manos destroyed the entire planet.
Yeah. That is some power.
That's some serious genocide action there. That's Dark Phoenix level kind of stuff. So
I do have some questions when I'm looking at Cosmic Boy's bed that he's sleeping on. There's nothing about that looks comfortable. And he's got this giant, so the rings have the ability to be an alarm. It's clear that nobody has confidence that anybody wears them. Because look at what he's got next to him.
What years ring powers came into effect?
Yes.
Because it's like, does Shooter know what they all do? And the other one is you remember Shooter's in Pittsburgh writing this stuff and mailing it in.
Yes.
Okay. So he's not in the bullpen with the other. Shooter in the bullpen in the 60s probably would have been a hoot. He probably would have been smoking 3 packs a day by the time he got out of there with that group. Len Wein and, oh geez. Yeah, that's a lot of heavy smokers.
The names of the people that were writing comics during this era and what they did. Oh my gosh. And Shooter's name absolutely 1000% needs to be in that group.
Well, and Denny in his later interviews and Len Wein, God rest both their souls, were very open about the mind-altering products that they were willing to use during that period. He's talking about dropping acid and writing. So, I mean, he's a great guy. I met him at a comic book convention in Kokomo, Indiana.
You have me so jealous.
I know. I was we were walking through a comic book store, and there was when we first moved to Indiana, the first time, and there was a flyer for Kokomo Comic Con, and my wife just looked at it. She's like, "Hey, weren't you talking about that guy?" It said Denny O'Neil. I'm like, oh, shit, Denny O'Neil. So we got in the car and we got there fast, and then we took it slow in Kokomo. And we sat down, and this was just after Ra's al Ghul appeared in Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
So we sat down, and there was no one there. It was a really small con, so we sat there and talked. I signed a copy of my novel of Nightfall and those iconic O'Neil Adams issues of Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I had him named to Ken, so unless you're Ken, you're never going to want a copy. But he was talking for hours about it. My wife was just fascinated because he was talking about Ra's al Ghul and how his daughter came up with him. We talked about the death of Robin. I told him I wanted my $2 back because I voted twice for Jason Todd to die. I want my $2 back. $2. And he was ingratiated, but he was looking rough at that point of his life. You could tell that he was not going to be with us for much longer. Incredibly nice man, incredibly engaging. That's why I like going to some of these smaller events that you're able to sit there and talk, especially smaller events where people don't know who's there, and being able to see what he's done and talk to him in those pieces.
I watched the animated release of Batman Year One recently, and one of the extras is an interview with Scott Snyder, him, and why am I blanking on who the third person was? But the important part was,
was it Frank Miller or Neil Adams?
No, it was neither of them. But Denny was one of the prominent people. It was just the three of them. So it was more of an intimate interview. And Denny was just waxing poetic on Batman and the history and anything like that. He's somebody that just anything where there is an article where he was sharing his thoughts or things like that. I remembered his editorial note when he'd be in the back of the book. Just writing his obviously my geek out with him comes completely from Batman, but to diminish him to just what he's done with Batman is so underestimating what this man did with relation to comics. Denny O'Neil's his name doesn't always get mentioned in the same light of some of the giants.
Well, he's a writer, and the writers didn't.
Right.
In the modern comic book era, writers really don't get as much as they used to. With the 90s, it became very much about the artists. And it's one of those, losing Denny O'Neil was a real gut punch.
Yes.
I suddenly realized that we were not going to have these men any longer. That's why I made sure to see Stan Lee. That's why I made sure to see George Perez, Marv Wolfman. Yeah. It was great seeing Marv Wolfman in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover for the Arrowverse. These guys are people that are not, it's going to be hard to remember them when they go. And we need to make sure that they get the kudos now because they didn't get it in the 80s. They did not get paid for that kind of work. We talked earlier, there's no credits in any of these books. If it wasn't for these gentlemen, we wouldn't be able to have the comics or the media that we have today. I got really dark, didn't I? Sorry.
No, actually, to bring that into positive, though, I do find that I sit through the credits of every one of these superhero movies, looking for the acknowledgments. And I genuinely do because I want to see when they're acknowledging creators. I notice the ones they acknowledge. I notice the ones that they leave out. In the end, I want these people acknowledged for the work that they did. And I think that stuff is just I think it's really cool when they get it right. When they don't, it annoys me. And just because of the fact that I feel the name acknowledgement, the chance for them to see their name in the lights up there is something that is the least they deserve for the work that they did. And I just like it. So I'm one of the people that they're like, why are those there? Me. I want to see it. I want to see creators in there. And I think that it's worth making sure that they have the exclamation point of, no, I was involved in the creation of this. Some of this content that was here, whether it's the whole story or elements of the story, they took this great story beat that I did or something like that, and they ran with it. That part's really important when they do it. And I appreciate when shows do cameos and stuff like that. I just think those are things that I geek out so often when I'm like, oh, I know what that is. And I feel it's connecting threads.
Seeing Fury of the Gods and seeing the original Billy Batson there. I'm like, I know who that guy is.
Yeah.
Oh, I would know who that guy is even without the shirt on.
Yes.
That's one of the things when I talked to Jack Kirby's kids after Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were inducted as Disney Legends, and Stan was so complimentary of Jack Kirby. And it's like one of the more positive talks that Stan has had of that large of an audience about Jack. And Jack's kids were so appreciative of it. They had talked, when I was talking to them, they were very much that they were glad that Stan had talked about their father and in such a positive light, and that Disney had recognized the work that Jack had done for the work they're doing. And then 4 years later, speaking with Steve Ditko's nephew at the Legends Luncheon, his nephew was very complimentary of the company, and all of us who still remember Steve Ditko. I mean, I'm a huge fan of The Question and of objectivism, and Steve Ditko was a big proponent of both. And I love reading that old Ditko question stuff. It is just so it's ahead of its time. It's really ahead of its time. So
well, you saw what it led to.
Oh yeah.
Because the question that spun out of all that is amazing, and I feel like
Denny O'Neil question stuff is really evocative of the Ditko question.
I agree.
On the page, yeah.
I was glad that Denny realized, hey, there was something there that like should not go away, and I'd like to see a collection of the Ditko stuff kind of put in the same. Because they did the omnibuses just recently,
right? Yeah, the question Charlton Action Heroes Volume 2's got all those guys in it.
Yeah, and that stuff
is terrible. It's a terrible print, though.
Yeah,
that archive edition is just they did not put any effort into that. That was basically get it to the presses. We need to have something. I can't remember what they were releasing that they needed to make sure the Charlton characters were out there. But yeah, it's not a real good. They need to have a better rendition. I finally picked up a copy of the first appearance of Blue Beetle, Ted Cord Blue Beetle.
Yeah,
and I was like, that early Charlton stuff. That was the first character I attempted to cosplay as a child as Blue Beetle because I had an issue with him and the question in it. So
that's cool.
And a very very young Ken Nabbe. So
Let's talk a little bit about the Sun Eater because that's where we're at in the issue right now.
Okay, so Sun Eater.
I mean, this is an important, entity.
He's appeared in so much stuff. It's scary that yet another Jim Shooter creation.
Yeah,
he appeared in Final Night. I know Jim hasn't read Final Night, but it is the antagonist of Final Night. We see it in All-Star Superman.
You really haven't read Final Night with the Parallax stuff, and
I think I have read it. I just don't remember everything about it.
Yeah. The Sun Eater.
It's worth rereading in light of because I here's the thing. I think in isolation, if you don't know about any of this, you wouldn't realize the significance of the Legion events.
The kicker in Final Night, all of us who read Legion, Ferro Lad, they introduced the modern era Ferro Lad.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're like, oh, the Sun Eater's here. They got a bomb. Oh. They're going to send Ferro Lad. Yeah, that was the natural assumption. Ferro Lad's going to take care of the Sun Eater because he did.
Right.
And the fact that Hal Jordan just suddenly shows up, Scooby-Doo ending, shows up and, okay, I'm going to end this and finish it off because we need to get rid of Hal Jordan.
And does his own Ferro Lad.
Hal Jordan is a villain.
He actually did his own Ferro Lad.
Yes, he does it.
Yeah.
And that rolls into the Green Arrow reboot. And the Kevin Smith run of Green Arrow. I mean, it's just, but the Sun Eater, I mean, in All-Star Superman's got a Sun Eater as a pet. And supposedly that Superman is the Silver Age Superman. So Superman knows exactly how dangerous a Sun Eater is. I'm just going to keep it around here.
That is so the Silver Age Superman, though, isn't it? That what you just said is we know. Look at what we're setting up here with this Sun Eater, where it's like we've got to bring in major dangerous villains in order to take care of this. But the Silver Age adult Superman, and that's the key, the Silver Age adult Superman, because the Superboy isn't that guy yet, decides, hey, that thing that we had to bring in the most vile villains in to solve that problem where it should be, I should keep it as a pet. That is very much, if you were to say, tell me something that would make me understand the Silver Age Superman, probably that statement sums up the Silver Age Superman.
But here's the thing. He's keeping it well fed, so it's not dangerous. That's a very Superman thing to do. Let's not destroy it. Let's just keep it fed and happy. And
what is he feeding it?
I can tell Jim doesn't have a PETA card. So
yeah.
Remember, he's feeding it. He's creating mini stars on the anvil.
Sure.
Yeah. It's it. Then he feeds our Superman pulls so much of that crazy stuff from the Silver Age out. But the fact that there's no Brainiac 5 in this run either. We don't see Brainiac 5 until later. And I'm not sure if this predates Brainiac 5. Or Jim, because they don't have a detective character in any of this.
No.
We saw that in the Karate Kid stuff. Superman is Superboy is the closest thing you're going to have to a detective style character. And this is before I met Bruce in the Silver Age. So he doesn't know all that crazy Bruce detective stuff. So there's no one really going, how are we going to come up with a plan to solve this issue? And again, the best one they could come with is recruit some supervillains.
Jim, this is so Superboy. And I think this is the great thing about doing some of these stories. You and I will sometimes have debates over who Superman is.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we sometimes have different reading experiences. This Superboy is who I grew up with. The Superboy that's here. And when you see this Superboy and all the stuff that he's doing and the capabilities, like, this is what Supes was doing as a kid.
Right.
This is
great. A little bit of the super jerk in here, too.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's teenage Superman.
Yes.
Yeah. Superman as a teenager.
And here's the thing. He's not a reluctant leader, Sean.
No. That's why we've had that debate.
He's not a reluctant leader.
No, that's why when you were saying he was that's where our debate over this came from. This is who I grew up with. This kid.
Yeah. Whenever Superman goes back, goes in time, he's the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. He basically pulls rank every time. I can remember. I think there's only a few stories where he actually defers to the actual elected Legion leader at the time. Of course, the Legion of Superheroes is a big Superboy fan club. I mean, let's be honest.
Yep. Now, one of the things I loved about this, the fact that they're throwing out the fact that we need the Fatal Five to help us cope with the Sun Meteor, but I do like the fact that they give us an explanation why the rest of the Legion won't be here. And then they do this recruitment effort where Sunboy is calling out the Superboy is throwing capsules to different people. Again, the level of powers that this Superboy has is epic. And even just the reaching out of the mind, the images, the space radio. I like the fact that they did call for backup here. They did recognize, let's just see what we can get out there. Now, this is a calling all cars, we have an emergency type of situation. And I love this page where it's just showing them trying all their different stuff to reach people.
I love it's space radio because you got to travel faster than light. Yeah.
I love the helmet. The helmet on it, that is so 60s space wacky tech.
Oh, man. Yeah, couldn't Saturn Girl do this kind of stuff? That's what I know. Yeah, it's like...
Yeah, but then you wouldn't get that Legions out. You would get that crazy wacky helmet then, though. I love that this is the first time they've ever failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, we've never failed before. No. This is terrible.
Yeah.
This building to the seeking out the Fatal Five, though, and the way that they did it, I just love the way that part 2 kicks off. That we're seeing this recruitment and what the recruitment process looks like. And even the interactions with the villains and heroes, I thought were just so well written because it's very different. And I love that the villains are still villainous. I love that there's internal dialogue going on. He's turning his back now. My ray weapon. I just love everything about that because you're not playing off this thing that these are intrinsically good people. They aren't. But they are survivors. And they're recognizing that they're going to play along when they need to for survival purposes. But everything is a plot for how are they going to take advantage of this situation to ultimately conquer all. And I love that. I just think it's so great.
How did they capture the Emerald Empress? I mean, they got her tied to that, or they got her chained to that stake.
Right.
It's like, how did she just zap them all of the eye?
Yeah, it's just, they're like, Superboy just happens to show up and she's like, which, and here's the thing. She can't get out of this situation where she's tied up at a stake, although I think she probably was coming up with a plan. And I love that but she's got green kryptonite ready to go.
She makes green kryptonite.
Yeah.
Doesn't just have it.
No.
She had to know.
No.
Oh, she just have it?
Yeah, she had a cape.
Oh, jeez.
Because
I know more. Jenny O'Neill's great kryptonite no more.
Yeah. Well, that's where it all went.
Yeah.
He sent it to the future.
Yeah, was that what all went? Yeah.
Apparently.
Now you said everybody was villainous. Vladius is different.
Yes.
I want to say he's more naive, which makes more sense about his origin.
And I actually love that he almost has kind of like that Hulk-like endearing quality.
Yeah.
We get to see him
in grunting style.
Yeah, because Projectra and what happens with that, I just feel like, and we'll talk more about it, but I feel like certain things like that, I'm like, I kind of... I like the fact that there's a heart in there amidst all the everything else, which is really interesting. he's got a lot to be mad about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And they don't even cover half it.
Yeah. I really like
every right to be an angry boy.
We haven't talked about the arrows. The arrows direction you which way to read.
I have my notes. It's like it's like, oh, I'm not sure if people know how to flow this.
Yeah. Well, and they do some wacky flows in this too, with like some of where they do it like in a circle. Oh, the movement.
Well, they're still staying to the six box approach.
Yeah.
And now Watchmen does it in 9 box, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the 6 box is the Silver Age. You get 9 box in the late Silver and early Bronze Age. But it's still trying to stay to a 6 box format. But there is some action scenes that they need larger space for. And I sort of want to go back and find out the ones with the arrows, are those the issues that Jim penciled? Because Jim Shooter was doing penciling.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And did he decide, oh, I don't want 6 column. I don't want 6 row. I want to do this. I want to break the boundaries and get a larger piece here. I need to go back and look, because you have to go look on the internet. There's no way to tell any other way. Was it Shooter or was it Swan? Because he does a real good job mocking up Swan's look.
Yeah. Which that in of itself is insane to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's no insult to Shooter. It's just like, this is Kurt Swan.
Right.
I wonder, it would be so interesting to be able to step back to that era and understand how much was known at that time about who Kurt Swan was and what that looked like. Because we're very used to now throwing that name out with reverence. What did it look like in 66?
Well, that's one of the things I kick myself for not doing the research on this prior to Jim's passing, because I did not know that he was a penciler on these issues, because he's not in the credits.
Yeah.
Until I did research for this and knowing what he had done. I had sat through many Jim Shooter panels, mostly just to ask questions about Secret Wars and Defiant and Valiant.
Yes.
But his early DC stuff was always, he started 13. That was always the peak to me. Oh, he wrote when he was 13. But now knowing that he wrote and he did some pencil work. Oh, now.
Not 13.
I should have asked these questions. The things that hindsight's 20/20, as they say.
Yeah, the stuff you wanted to say that you now know, like, oh, dang it.
Well, it's like, I had an hour and a half with Denny O'Neil and still did not get everything I needed.
Yeah.
So
an hour and a half with Denny O'Neil's a dream.
I know. I thought my wife was going to kill me, but yeah, because we were at the Kokomo Comic Con. There was nothing else to do. It was a small show.
But that's where
some of those are nice, man. Some of those are nice.
To the point of that, if you're listening to this and you've never gone to a small comic book show and you see that there's a creator there that you would love to meet, do yourself a favor and hit it, because you're pointing out something that's really key there. The smaller the show, a lot of times people aren't as aware that show is a thing and is going on. They're few and far between these days in comparison to what they used to be.
Yeah, but things have also gone the other direction, Sean. It's like, I go to the big shows. I was able to get sketches this year at GalaxyCon that I wasn't able to get in previous years, because people just don't go to see comic book creators like they used to.
Yeah.
Katie was able to get some stuff from Dan Jurgens signed for me. I was able to spend some time with Jim Shooter.
You're right.
Adams. Yeah, Neil Adams and I spent some time. That's a story for another day. But they don't spend that much time. And I think Jeff Johns was the last creator I really had to stand in line to see. And he wrote Legion of Three Worlds. So he was incredible. He was very fast. I brought my copy and he thought it was the greatest thing that I brought that. It was almost as good as me bringing my copy of Green Arrow for Kevin Smith to sign. So that, and it's just, unless they're Quesada, Johns, they don't draw the people that they used to. So it's a little bit easier to get some of those guys and get some time with them.
Neil Adams was at Cleveland 2 years in a row.
Right.
And
or his passing.
Yeah. And it was he was giving people time, which was nice. He had traffic, but was still able to. It was, to your point, the shows are different now. And that's, I mean, Neil Adams had a block set up.
Right.
Neil Adams, when he comes in, there is just like a boom.
Yeah. And that was also during Adams had dropped back a little bit because that was part of his angry old man phase where he wasn't getting credit for anything. Therefore, he wasn't autographing stuff. Like his artwork was being used on stuff at Hobby Lobby. So he refused to autograph that stuff. If he wasn't getting residuals from it, and that's one of those, it's like, it's the fans, Neil. It's the fans.
Yeah, yeah.
These guys, you don't want to have negative. And he ended up swinging back, and which was good. I think his boys basically went and had a little talk, going, "Hey, Dad, you got something." So sometimes you need people in your life to tell them, yeah. And Neil's work is in this period is great too. I think we've covered almost every major DC Silver Age artist or writer in this discussion.
Yeah. Organically though, because I mean, you're connecting with an era.
Oh yeah.
Here, as it's funny, circling back to this and Shooter and Swan, depending on what this looked like. And I'm with you now. I'm fascinated to know what it looked like because I'm not seeing anything jarringly different.
No. And that's what makes me wonder. There's only a few books that show the flow in comparison to. And so I'm going to wonder if that was a Shooter thing, because that seems like something Shooter would do.
Sure.
It's like, okay, I'm new. I'm a comic book reader. This is what I have problems with. Let me fix it with arrows.
That does make sense.
It's something. It's like when you've been drawing comics as long as Kurt Swan had been drawing them. And when was the last time we really read anything? It's like, okay, maybe this is something we should be putting into stuff to make sure they flow better. I have a hard time. That's one of the things with the app. Sometimes it doesn't flow the way I'm expecting it. So it's like when I try to do frame by frame because my eyes are so bad.
Well, it's funny. The next page does the flow differently.
Yeah.
When he's actually explaining it to Validus, you're going in a different direction.
Yeah.
So interesting. And there's no arrows. No arrows there. He just expects you to follow the flow, which is fine. I didn't need the arrows, but it's so interesting to see the difference between the two pages.
Now, Persuader's axe has got to be one of the more interesting pieces of tech from the Legion of Superheroes era. It cuts through everything, including gravity, which I was like going, that's just crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so neat.
And it's comic booky, right?
Yes. And he uses it to cut somebody's gravity and causes them to float later on. I'm just like, that is just crazy town.
And doesn't even think twice about it. Like,
no, that's just thing.
Because it had to be a split-second decision or else it wouldn't have worked.
Axe.
Yeah. So great.
What's your superpower? I got an axe.
Yeah.
You got an axe. Yeah.
Axe is my power.
But he makes it work.
I know. In ways I never expected to. Makes you wonder, can he cut sun rays? Can he make stuff into darkness? It's like, where can we go with this?
I loved him in Projector and how that all played out. Because at first, her illusions were working on him. Then he started realizing that's what they were and overcame them. I actually love a competent villain. And it's like, okay, you can do this trick on me only so many times. Then I'm going to start overcoming it. The quicksand thing that she did later on in it did not work because he had the chance to and it shows his determination. To me, I love villains that aren't stupid. And you catch by surprise, do all those kind of things. Yes, I'm into all of that. But I like when they force our what?
Tharok is the smartest, but Persuader's got to be the most ruthless.
Yes, yeah, and I love how that plays out too. And that doesn't make somebody
binary. It's yes, no, good. But Persuader, he's in it for Persuader.
Yeah.
It's his thing. It's like it's the 30th century version of Deathstroke the Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And I got an axe.
Ferro Lad and Mono, I thought was another great piece. I was really glad. Yeah. With where Ferro Lad's story goes, I was glad that he got screen time. Just because I feel like if you're going to care about where this story's ultimately going, you've got to start developing a relationship with this character. And I feel like that was something that was very well done. It didn't foreshadow what was going to happen to him, but we got to know him and build a relationship with him and feel like we want to see more of this character and where this character is ultimately going to go. I love the way that he was used.
One of the things I loved about the space guillotine, though, it has the rockets on it to push down the blade.
Yeah, because there's no gravity.
I love that. And also, again, right on the side of the space police vehicle, we're space police, so you gotta designate police.
Why though do they need rockets if they can just use an axe?
Well, they don't have Persuader's axe.
Yeah,
I was just teasing. I was like, I'm with you.
We're not even sure this whole space guillotine thing would have worked.
Right. Valid point.
We would then have had Stump of Annihilation.
Yes. Stump of Annihilation. And what else?
A little bit easier to cover.
Yeah. What do you do with the hand? Like,
oh, man, it's like the hand of Vecna and the Stump of Annihilation.
Yes. Yeah. That would have been. You could have had a whole new villain.
Man. Oh, hold on. So you got the hand of Midas actually still turns things to gold.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So would the hand of Manos still blow things up?
I don't know. The question is, where does the power originate? Because if you had the Stump of Annihilation, it would make me think that the hand of Annihilation would not be working.
Right.
If he did not have a Stump of Annihilation, then he could wear the hand of Annihilation around his neck and start throwing it at people.
Each villain's joining of this whole thing I loved because they wound up being unique and different. Hand Stump set aside. I liked that they felt like villains joining the team, that there's opportune reasons for it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go with this guy right now because look what the alternative is at the moment. As he's explaining his story, the cliffhanger at the end with this big explosion of energy from the Sun Eater and just everyone in shock, including Valdis is sitting there jaw dropped. In the beginning, I thought was just we're used to seeing cliffhanger endings. This is not the norm from this era. It's really, they were counting on issue. If there was a splash page, it was to tease you into the next issue, which was going to be a new story, not a continuation, which, to the point of the thought process being that every issue was a jump on issue and things like that.
Yeah, this isn't part 2 when we go into the next piece.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a new issue, but even looking, going, hey, this is another one. Now we're getting back into a Silver Age style cover.
Yes.
Because this has nothing to do with what we're going to be seeing going forward. The Sun Eater is the villain, but I don't think putting a big glob on the cover would have been very, very interesting for people on the spinner racks.
So, guys, seeing as we're going to do this as a two-parter, I want to make a suggestion. We're at the halfway point. What do you say we stop here and prepare for part 2 to continue and wrap up this whole, because I feel like we're doing this whole story a disservice if we don't do the whole thing, because I feel like everything contained in this collection is well worth discussing.
No, it's fine.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where you're going to find details on current episodes and what's coming up next. We feed into Twitter/X and also our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community. I want to thank everyone that posts there for news and articles and commentary about what's going on in comics and pop culture. If you have podcasts, blogs, anything like that you want to shout out, conventions. Actually, Ken talks a lot about conventions. Any conventions and things you want to shout out that you're going to or you're aware of that can use some notice, feel free to throw it into our Facebook groups. We love cross-promotion and helping people out. The About Us section of our show website, you can find details on how to connect with us on gaming platforms and social media. I am a regular co-host on Is It Jaws, which is a film review podcast using the Jaws 1 through 4 scale. If you're into film reviews, please check that out. Paul Spataro was kind enough to invite me on that podcast. And we are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
You can still pick up your DC Marvel Batman Deadpool team up one shot the main cover and all the variant covers 38% off. So thank you, DCBS.
Once again, over at InStockTrades.com, I just did a search for Legion and I did Omnibus just to see what the big books that are out there. They have the Legion Superheroes 5 Year Later's Omnibus. This is $150 regularly, 40% off, only $90. Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga, $49.99 regularly, 40% off, only $29.99. We have episodes where we reviewed this too, so if you want to pick that up and you haven't ever read it before, you can also check out our commentary afterwards. Our next episode, Jim and I are tentatively going to be back with Ken Nabbe to reach out for part 2, depending on his schedule. If he is not able to do that, please keep an eye on the website. What we're going to do is we're going to put in a filler episode, and then we're going to be back for part 2 after that. So we will definitely see you next week.
Bye.
Strategery. What is that supposed to mean? That's a word that I have never seen. Do you exist? Strategery. Suddenly, I don't feel as smart as I used to be. I couldn't find it in a dictionary. Oh, what the heck is strategery? Need to know, I don't know, it's just my way. I asked a friend I know and they told me go away. Strategery. Maybe it's something that is wrong with me. I may need a pill from the pharmacy. Maybe that will cure my strategery. Why I need to know, I don't know, it's just my way. Just because I don't know, I'll just say it anyway. Strategery. A definition isn't meant to be, or at least one that I can see. I'm so confused. Strategery.